It's just hard to start picturing a life without thinking about cancer all the time and letting it consume you. Tried to let it go as much as I ever had before and just really try to move on with my life.
They seemed like Hollywood's perfect power couple. Bill Rancic, the first winner of The Apprentice, and Giuliana DePandi, E! News's glamorous red carpet queen, built an empire together. Their reality show gave us a front-row seat to what looked like an unshakable romance. But behind the smiles and the successful restaurants, behind the designer clothes and the celebrity interviews, their relationship has been tested in ways that would break most couples. From devastating losses that left them questioning everything, to career sacrifices that nobody talks about, to a public scandal that nearly destroyed her reputation, the truth about their marriage is far more complicated than the fairy tale they showed the world. The embryo that changed everything. New Year's Eve, 2014, should have been a celebration for the Rancics. Instead, Giuliana and Bill received the call that would shatter their dreams of giving their son Duke a sibling. Their surrogate had miscarried. But this wasn't just any miscarriage. This was their third and final embryo, their very last chance at having another biological child. The couple had already lost 2 other embryos earlier that year when their surrogate miscarried just weeks after implantation. Now, with no viable embryos remaining, their journey to expand their family had come to a crushing end. What most people don't realize is just how brutal this fertility struggle had been. It started back in 2009 when they first began trying to conceive. Giuliana was 35 and believed she was in perfect health. She exercised regularly, ate well, and came from a large Italian family with 40 first cousins. Getting pregnant would be easy, she thought. She was completely blindsided when month after month passed with no success. Nobody had ever told her that eggs change when you reach a certain age, that fertility declines sharply after 35. By March 2010, they turned to IVF. The first round seemed like a miracle. Giuliana got pregnant. For 9 weeks, they dreamed about becoming parents. Then came the devastating miscarriage. The second IVF attempt in November 2010 didn't even result in a pregnancy. Giuliana found herself watching shows like 16 and Pregnant, feeling the unfairness. She could provide the greatest life for a child, yet she couldn't get pregnant. Then came the third round of IVF in late 2011, and that's when their world truly turned upside down. During the mandatory mammogram before the final phases of treatment, doctors discovered something terrifying. Giuliana had breast cancer. When the cameras captured their darkest moment, October 17, 2011, Giuliana announced on the Today Show that she had been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. What viewers didn't see was the absolute terror behind her composed facade. She later revealed that when she got the diagnosis, she thought she was going to die. She didn't know early detection gave her a 98% survival rate. The floor disappeared beneath her. The same day she found out, Giuliana anchored E! News. Years later, watching that episode back, she couldn't comprehend how she did it. The moment cameras stopped rolling, she ran to her dressing room and collapsed. It was Bill who picked her up off the floor and created a plan for moving forward. While the world watched their reality show, Giuliana and Bill document this journey, what they couldn't fully show was the weight of the decisions they faced. Giuliana underwent a double lumpectomy in mid-October 2011, returning to work a week later. But by December, she made the gut-wrenching decision to undergo a bilateral mastectomy. She hoped the surgery would beat cancer once and for all and prevent chemotherapy or radiation that could induce early menopause or destroy future fertility treatments. She was fighting cancer while simultaneously fighting to preserve her dream of becoming a mother. Here's where the story gets more complex. Despite her diagnosis, they moved forward with egg retrieval from their third IVF round before surgery. They found a gestational surrogate, but Giuliana's cancer medication made pregnancy too dangerous for her. Surrogacy became their only path to parenthood. In August 2012, their surrogate gave birth to Edward Duke Rancic. Seeing Duke for the first time, Giuliana said, was the single best moment of her life. Immediately, nothing else in the world mattered. They had survived cancer and infertility to finally become parents. With Duke's birth, they had 3 remaining embryos frozen and waiting. 3 chances to give him a sibling. But as we now know, all 3 of those embryos would be lost to miscarriages. That New Year's Eve call in 2014 marked the end of their biological fertility journey. They had been through 3 rounds of IVF, 1 successful pregnancy via surrogate, multiple miscarriages, and a cancer diagnosis that changed everything. And while they've remained open to adoption, calling it a beautiful gift, the finality of losing that last embryo was, in Giuliana's words, the toughest blow. The sacrifice nobody talks about. While everyone knows Bill and Giuliana as a power couple, few people understand the career sacrifices that nearly tore them apart. From the very beginning of their marriage, they were living on opposite coasts. Bill's life, his businesses, his family, and his entire identity were rooted in Chicago. Giuliana's career as E! News anchor and her fashion empire were based in Los Angeles. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a fundamental conflict that put constant pressure on their marriage. During early interviews, you could see the tension. Bill would insist they make it work, singing the praises of Chicago and making it clear he wanted to raise a family where his parents, childhood friends, and businesses were located. Meanwhile, Giuliana would sit there, noticeably quiet, the strain visible on her face. The bicoastal life was wearing on both of them, but especially on their marriage. They were newlyweds, trying to build a life together while spending more time apart than together. After Duke was born in 2012, the situation became unsustainable. They had a baby being shuffled between 2 cities, and Giuliana knew something had to give. In 2015, she made a decision that would change the trajectory of her career. She packed her bags and left Los Angeles, left her position as daily anchor of E! News, and relocated full-time to Chicago. She told People magazine that she wanted Duke to start school and have a connection with his classmates instead of being dragged from city to city. But there was more to it than that. The decision came during what was arguably the worst year of Giuliana's professional life. In February 2015, during Fashion Police's Oscar coverage, Giuliana made a comment that would haunt her for years. Looking at 18-year-old Zendaya's dreadlocks on the red carpet, Giuliana quipped that she felt like Zendaya smelled like patchouli oil or weed. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Zendaya responded with a powerful Instagram post calling the comment outrageously offensive and rooted in stereotypes. Kelly Osbourne quit Fashion Police days later, and Kathy Griffin openly criticized Giuliana to the press. Giuliana apologized on air, calling it a learning experience about cliches and stereotypes. She later claimed the joke had been edited poorly and taken out of context, that she'd been making a reference to hippie bohemian culture. But the damage was done. 5 months later, in July 2015, Giuliana announced she was leaving E! News. While she insisted it was 100% her decision, that she'd actually brought up leaving 3 years earlier, reports swirled that she was being pushed out. Sources claimed she was at odds with Maria Menounos, who many believed was being positioned to replace her. One insider told Page 6 it was half her decision to leave and half getting pushed out, noting Giuliana had an awful year and knew it was a sinking ship. Whether Giuliana was pushed or jumped, the reality was that she was leaving behind the career that had defined her for over a decade. She was walking away from the spotlight, from the red carpets, from the glamorous Los Angeles life she'd built. All for Bill, all for Chicago, all for the family she was trying to hold together. She would later say the decision came from wanting to be with family more, from wanting to find balance as a working mother. But the timing tells a different story. It was the cancer, the lost embryos, the public scandal, and the impossible choice between her marriage and her career that forced her hand. Behind the perfect marriage facade. For 7 seasons, Giuliana and Bill invited cameras into their home for their reality show. Viewers fell in love with their chemistry, their banter, their seemingly perfect partnership. But what the carefully edited episodes didn't always show were the real tensions simmering beneath the surface. In her memoir, Going Off Script, Giuliana revealed details that complicated the fairy tale narrative. Bill, she wrote, wasn't comfortable being the star of their reality show. It sparked many arguments between them. They would fight before the camera crews arrived, then have to pretend they weren't angry when filming began. They'd sit down and talk about their day as if nothing was wrong, all while seething inside. Bill also criticized Giuliana for acting like an over-exaggerated version of herself on camera, accusing her of playing to the audience rather than being authentic. These weren't small disagreements. These were fundamental conflicts about privacy, authenticity, and what they were willing to expose to the public. There were other cracks in the perfect image, too. During interviews, Bill would make comments that painted him as somewhat controlling. He once called Giuliana's car the dirty diaper, claiming she was messy as hell. He accused her of being on the borderline of hoarding, pointing out that she had 12 strollers and collected things compulsively. Giuliana admitted she had such strong emotional attachments to collecting certain things that she went to a hypnotist to address the habit. On one episode, viewers watched as she tried to break her attachment to material possessions, revealing a vulnerability that suggested deeper issues. Then there's the prenup story that sounds amusing on the surface, but hints at underlying trust issues. When Bill proposed in 2006, Donald Trump called him immediately with one piece of advice: get a prenup. Bill called Giuliana expecting pushback, but she immediately agreed. During negotiations, her lawyers added a clause Bill's attorney had never seen in 25 years of practice. If Bill got caught cheating, Giuliana wanted 110% of his net worth. Not 100%. 110. Bill agreed, confident he wouldn't cheat. But just before the wedding, Giuliana still hadn't signed the document. When Bill asked why, she revealed her lawyer was actually her brother, who never went to law school, and that Italian girls don't sign prenups. The whole negotiation had been a setup. It's a funny anecdote they've shared in interviews, but it also reveals something about their dynamic. There's a level of testing, of power plays, of not quite trusting even as they profess complete devotion. And while they've survived nearly 20 years together, constantly telling interviewers how much they love spending time together and how they laugh until their cheeks hurt. There's an intensity to their relationship that doesn't quite match the carefree image they project. The price of staying together. By 2019, Giuliana made another major career decision. E! News was moving to the East Coast, and she chose not to make the transition. She left the show entirely, citing her desire to focus on family and business ventures. But this was more than just a career change. It was a recognition that after everything they'd been through, the fertility struggles and the cancer and the public scandals and the cross-country commutes, family had to come first. Not because it was easy, but because the alternative was losing each other. The Rancics have built an impressive business empire together. Their RPM restaurants, standing for Rancic and their partner Melman, now have 9 locations across major cities including Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas. Bill has his real estate development projects and motivational speaking career. Giuliana has her G by Giuliana fashion line on HSN and her various product lines. They've accumulated a combined net worth of $30 million. By any measure, they're successful. But success came at a cost. Giuliana gave up the daily spotlight she loved. She moved away from the entertainment capital of the world. She endured years of painful fertility treatments and the physical and emotional trauma of cancer and a double mastectomy. She survived a public scandal that could have ended her career. She lost the chance to have more biological children, all while trying to maintain the image of a perfect power couple who had it all figured out. Bill had to share his private life with millions of viewers for 7 years, something he clearly resented. He had to watch his wife struggle through medical procedures and public backlash. He had to be the strong one, the one who stayed level-headed and made plans when Giuliana was falling apart. He had to compromise on having the large family in Chicago he'd always envisioned, settling instead for one son and a wife, whose career meant they'd never have the traditional life he'd imagined. And Duke, their miracle baby, grew up knowing his birth story involved surrogates and IVF and his mother's cancer. He grew up watching his parents on television, their lives documented for entertainment. He grew up as an only child, knowing he almost had siblings, but those embryos were lost. He's now 12 years old, attending school in Chicago, appearing in cooking segments, showcasing his mother's recipes, and being raised by parents who put their marriage before him because they believe seeing them in love will make him feel safe. The sad truth about fairy tales. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Bill and Giuliana Rancic's relationship has survived, but survival isn't the same as thriving. They've stayed together through circumstances that destroy most marriages: cancer, infertility, multiple miscarriages, career implosion, public scandal, the loss of their last chance at expanding their family, the sacrifice of career dreams and personal identity. They've endured all of it and remain married, still working together, still presenting a united front to the world. But the sad truth is what they've had to give up to make it work. Giuliana sacrificed the career that defined her, the Los Angeles lifestyle she loved, and the dream of having more children. She went through a double mastectomy at 37, losing part of her physical identity to save her life and try to preserve her fertility. She weathered a racism scandal that tarnished her reputation and forced her out of the job she'd held for nearly a decade. She moved across the country to a city that was always more Bill's home than hers. Bill sacrificed his privacy and comfort to star in a reality show he never wanted to do. He had to be the rock when his world was crumbling too, watching his wife battle cancer while grieving their infertility struggles. He had to compromise on the large family and traditional Chicago life he'd envisioned. He built a life around accommodating Giuliana's career, then watched that career implode and force her home to him, not as a victory, but as a retreat. Their relationship works because they've made it their absolute priority, often at the expense of everything else. They have rules like no phones when they get home, weekly check-ins to discuss what's bothering them and what they love about each other, and putting their marriage before their child. Bill brings Giuliana coffee in bed every morning. They laugh together until their cheeks hurt. They've opened 9 restaurants and are planning more. They've been together for nearly 20 years. By Hollywood standards, they're a success story. But the cost of that success is written in every sacrifice, every compromise, every dream deferred or abandoned entirely. Giuliana will never have the career she once had. She'll never have more biological children. She'll always carry the physical and emotional scars of cancer and infertility. Bill will always be the husband who had to be strong enough for both of them, who had to put his own needs aside, who had to build a life that could accommodate constant medical crises and career upheavals. The sad truth about Bill and Giuliana Rancic's relationship isn't that it failed. It's that it succeeded by demanding everything from both of them. They stayed together by sacrificing pieces of themselves, by enduring losses that left permanent marks, by choosing each other over careers and dreams, and the life they'd imagined when they first fell in love over dinner at Nobu in 2005. They're still standing, still married, still building their empire. But the price they paid to get here is one most people couldn't fathom paying. When Giuliana looks back on losing that last embryo on New Year's Eve 2014, she calls it the toughest blow. They'd been so optimistic, believing it was definitely going to work. that it was their last shot at another biological child. The pain of that loss, layered on top of cancer and career implosion and all the other trials, created a relationship that's less fairy tale and more survival story. They didn't get the perfect Hollywood ending. They got something more complicated, more real, more costly. They got a marriage that survived by consuming almost everything else in their lives. And maybe that's the real truth about power couples and reality show romances and relationships that look perfect from the outside. The price of staying together through impossible circumstances is that nothing else stays intact. Not careers, not dreams, not the people you were when you started. Bill and Giuliana Rancic made their marriage work by letting almost everything else break. They chose each other again and again, through circumstances that would have justified walking away. But choosing each other meant losing other versions of themselves, other possible lives, other dreams they'd held. That's the sad truth nobody wants to acknowledge. Sometimes the happy ending is just another way of saying, we gave up everything else to get here. Bill and Giuliana are still together, still in love, still building their life in Chicago with Duke. But the road to that togetherness is paved with losses that never stop echoing, sacrifices that never stop costing them, and a reality that's far more complicated than any reality show could capture. What are your thoughts about the truth behind Bill and Giuliana's relationship? Share with us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.